All right, welcome everybody. I'm doing a quick video here on the OCX Tools version 2. So I've rewritten it from the ground up using all the new Lua stuff. Has the same functionality as before, maybe one or two minor new little things. So let me walk you through how to use it. So if you don't have any other windows displaying when you start up, it'll put the toolbar up for you. Of course, as you move a window around, it'll save its position. When you start up again, you can also, close it if you don't want to see it. And you can resize the windows. Oh, see how we have a name that just popped up over here in the corner for a second? That's one of the features. So anyone who is on your friends list who comes online while you're running, they'll pop up there for a few seconds, and you can say, oh, so-and-so's online, so you can send them a message or whatever you want to do. All right. So yeah, most of the windows, all of the windows have a little X you can use to close them. Otherwise, you can click and drag them around, and they all have this little up and down arrow, which is a way you can click to resize the window, bigger, smaller. It just kind of cycles through. So if you're running on a really big monitor or something, and it's a little too small, you can make it bigger. So we'll just keep this small right now for the demo here. All right, now the A is the About window if you want to kind of see what version you're running. All right, and let's just kind of walk through these one by one. We'll start with the timers because the timers have to do with this little icon here. So there are 3 different timer windows. And so I'm just going to keep one of each size so you can kind of see the relative size differences. But anyway, one of them defaults to a 1-minute timer, the other is a 5-minute timer, and the third one's a 10-minute timer. So you can use those to calculate, how long until a scene resets or a monster respawns or whatever. And of course, if these numbers don't work for you, you can add or subtract 30 seconds at a time from them. And then you just hit the play button, and they start counting down until they hit 0, and then they stop. You can also hit the little arrow here on the bottom, and now it's going to be a timer counting up instead, and it'll just count up to whatever you want. So you can either count up or count down, whichever makes sense for the situation you're in. Oh, there's somebody else who just popped online. So and if you don't like what these are called, I think by default they're called timer 1, timer 2, timer 3, but that's where this little settings icon comes in. So if you click that, it'll actually open up the configuration window, and you can see, timer 1, I've called it reset 1, but if I didn't like that, I can call it, whatever. Just type it in, hit OK, and it updates it. And now this window is called whatever, and so you can customize what each of these timers say they do if that helps you, and of course it saves that permanently for you between sessions. So anyway, that's how the timers work. Pretty handy sometimes, depending on what area you're in and what you're doing. All right, so now let's just kind of start going through these one by one. So the first window is the XP window. Keeps track of how much XP you've made. So the top is your total adventure pool for right now. Next is how much XP you've made within the last hour. So, but you don't have to be within the last hour if you don't want. If you hit this T for toggle, it'll actually just show you the total amount of XP you've made since your last reset or since the last session. And even though I have made a little bit of XP in the last hour, I haven't made any XP since I last restarted my session here. So, but if you're going to be playing for 2 or 3 hours and you didn't want this to just stop and show you how much within the last hour, but how much total, then you can hit here and it'll just keep counting up and up. And it does the same for the producer XP as well. If you hit R, it'll reset everything back to 0. And if you hit L, it will bring up a level window which shows you some cool stuff. It says your current adventure level, how much XP you need to get to the next level, and what percentage of the way you are. So currently I'm 14% of the way to level 140. And the same with the producer level. So you can check that once in a while to see how close you're getting to the next level. So let me just put that back where it was. All right. Next up we have the daily stats window. And here got a couple of things. So it shows you the total amount of gold that you've made for the day, how many kills you've made today, and the total amount of adventure and producer XP that you've made for the day. And this resets automatically at the beginning of each day. But you can also hit the R to reset it, at any time you want to. Like if you want to, I don't know, you go into a new scene and you want to reset it for whatever reason, you can. And then there's this G button, which is to add gold manually. So it'll keep track of gold that you get from looting and stuff like that automatically. But some gold the system doesn't track, because in order to track the gold, it has to like parse these log messages. And for things like when you sell stuff to vendors or complete daily quests or talk to the Oracle, stuff like that, there is no combat log of it. So you can manually go in here and say, oh, yeah, I just talked to the Oracle, made 500 gold, type it in. It'll add it to your total there. And you can also add negative. So like if you buy something off of a vendor for 500 gold, it'll subtract it. So you can kind of keep that accurate if you want, or you can just ignore it and let it do its thing. So that is the daily stats window. So next, the magic resist window. This one, just like the name says, it just kind of shows you all the magic schools here and what your current resistance is to that type of magic. Not a lot to say about that window. It's pretty straightforward. The DPS window. This one's kind of fun. It's more interesting when you're in a party. But what it will do, and I'll go fight something in a second here and show you, but it'll show you a little bar over on the left of kind of the relative DPS that each person is doing. DPS stands for damage per second, and then it'll show the name and then a numerical value of how much DPS you have. And you can actually change the window over which it calculates. So by default, it's like how much damage have you done on average every second over the last 5 minutes. Or you can set it to 30 seconds, 30 minutes, or 1 hour if you just kind of change the scale. So let's go fight something and watch our DPS change. All right, so as you can see, I have 194 DPS. This archer is trying very hard to do some damage. He's done 3. Oh, now up to 9. Great. Anyway, so you can just kind of see that shows you a little relative. Yeah, these are relative to each other. So the top one will always be full bars, and then it goes down from there. And it's more interesting when you're like I said, when you're in a party of people or something, kind of see how everyone's doing compared to each other. All right, the attack stats would be next. Let's get out of here so we don't get attacked again while I'm talking. The attack stats window is right here. In fact, we'll just bring it over, make it big to see. So it shows you, and this is based on your current session. It doesn't store this between sessions. So if you exit the game and come back in, it'll be reset. Or you can manually hit R to reset it at any time. But it shows you how many attacks you've done, what your maximum damage is, the total damage you've done, the average damage for each hit, what your crit percentage is at, and if you've done any heals, how much you've healed for and what your maximum heal was. Since I'm not much of a healer, those are always pretty much 0 for me, but it does come in handy if you're healing. You kind of want to see how you're doing. So yeah, I like this a lot to see, okay, what is my crit percentage? How can I get that higher? What's my max damage? What's my average damage? Trying to get those up, to maximize your DPS. Excuse me, my throat is a little dry. All right. So next window is the attack detail window. This one's got a lot of stuff on it, so don't be intimidated here. I'm going to close these and make this big so it's easy to see. It's actually pretty simple once you get the hang of it. So at the top, it'll say it's showing the attack detail for Feld and Grimshaw, so for me, but you can actually hit these arrows to cycle through, and you can see the Hardened Elven Archer. Here's what they have done, and if there were 10 or 15 things that have been attacking, they'll all be in here, and you can cycle through all of them. But what it does, it'll say, okay, Feld and Grimshaw, here is the damage that I have done, and here's the damage that I have taken. And then it lists out by attack type. So I've done 1 thrust, I've done 3 double slashes, I've done 3 offhand attacks, and 3 default attacks. And then it tells you the total damage you've done for each type of attack, and what your crit percentage is for each type of attack. And then it breaks it up into, okay, on average, I've done this much damage per hit for this type of attack, and I've done this much damage on average for every critical hit, plus a standard deviation off of there. And of course, these numbers become more interesting as you get more hits built up. But that way you can kind of use it to say, oh, you know what, this type of attack seems to be doing better against this type of enemy over here, so I can use that more. Or this one isn't being very effective, so I'll use that less. And then you can also kind of see what damage you have been taking. It's like, oh, aimed shot seems to be doing the most damage against me. Disabling shot, does a lot less damage, and there's been more attack, so it's really less effective. So what can I do to defend better against the aimed shot, etc. And then you can look at it from the archer's point of view. Well, here's how much damage they took from what kind of hit. Or sorry, what they dealt and what they took down here. And since this is kind of expensive to calculate, it only does it when you open the window. So if it were to try to do it in real time as you were going, it would just blow up. It melts your computer down. So it just does it once when you open, but you can hit this little refresh button whenever, and it will recalculate. Although I wouldn't recommend keeping this window open during combat anyway, because it kind of takes up the whole screen. So I just usually look at it after a fight to kind of get a sense for how it went and how I could make it better. All right. Next up, we have the loot tracker window. So this window, it's got multiple tabs as well, or it can. It actually just starts with 1, but you can add more. It'll keep track of how much of whatever you have gotten since you last reset the window, or sorry, reset the tab, and you can reset each tab individually. So for example, I've added a tab called mining, and I've tracked different kind of ores that I'm interested in tracking. So if let's go mine something. Oh, I've got to kill this guy first. Actually, okay. Let's see how he's going to give me an Elven S-Stock as soon as I loot him. So let's go add that to my list. So if I hit this settings gear, it'll bring up, hey, what do you want to do? So I can add a new tab. So notice I got a lot of tabs here. I can add a new one if I want. I can remove an existing tab. I can move a tab left or right if I want to reorder them. I can begin tracking something, or I can stop tracking something. So let's begin tracking Elven S-Stock. So I type in Elven S-Stock, I hit OK. It now shows up in my list, and I took it, and now you can see I've got an Elven S-Stock, and as I go get more, that number will increase. Also, you can have the same thing tracked on multiple tabs. Like right here, I have Elven Essence on the mining tab. I also happen to have it. Oh, I thought I had it over here. I have Lich and Troll, but anyway, it doesn't matter. You can put it on multiple tabs if you want. It doesn't. So, and then if you hit reset, you'll notice that this was reset 4 hours and 31 minutes ago. But if I hit reset, it's been reset immediately. All the things go back to 0. And so you can just kind of keep track of all the things that you want to keep track of. All right, next we have the harvest window. So for this one, what it does is it shows you your average yield for various mining things like silver, gold, iron, copper, cotton, pine, and maple. And also the percentage of the time that you get, the rare essence out of it, like tin, beetle, resin, and sooty bark. Oh, and this one that you can hardly see on this background, nickel, right? Iron gives you nickel. So, well, that is hard to see. I need to maybe make that a little brighter or something. But anyway, so you can see that my average yield is around, somewhere between 2 and 3 on most of these. Haven't done any pine since I last reset, obviously. And I get about a third of the time I get nickel, 22% of the time I get tin, et cetera, et cetera. And that'll just keep track of that as you harvest things, so you can kind of see, which areas yield better for which types of things. And of course you can hit R to reset it back to 0 at any time you want. So let's see if we can go harvest something real quick now that I've done a reset. So here's an iron ore node. So if we pull that up, mine this ore node. So we'll get some average yield here, and we'll also get nickel. So we're going to get 2 irons and 0 nickels once we take this. So you can see, since that was the very first time, my average yield is 2. If I were to do it again and get 1, that would be 3 total out of 2. So anyway, you get like 1 and 3/4 or whatever. Anyway, and then I've got 0 out of 1 has yielded nickel, so 0% of the time. All right, and finally we have the kills window. So all this does, just like it says, is it adds pages automatically as it needs to, but it'll just keep track of how many of each creature that you have killed, and it puts them in alphabetical order, and I think it does like 20 per page. And it's just there to kind of glance at. If a lot of times that's useful, like, oh gosh, how many orange wyverns have I killed today or whatever. It'll let you do that, and then you just hit reset whenever and make it all go away. So that, in a nutshell, is OCX Tools. So I hope you like it. When you load it up, it has a little link that you can click here, which will take you to a web page that has the instructions. But really, I'm going to change that web page to just show this video, and there's one key command you need to know, which is Shift Control F12, which turns the toolbar on and off. Although pretty much all of these also have key bindings. So X for XP, D for daily stats, S for attack stats, M for magic resist, P for DPS, T for attack detail, H for harvest, L for loot, K for kills, right? You can do all that from the keyboard if you want to. Well, that's getting kind of crazy there. But, so if you want to memorize the keystrokes, you can. But really, if you don't, just remember how to turn the toolbar on and off, which is Control-Shift F12, and then you can just do it from clicking. And with that, I'm going to end this so it doesn't get too long, and hopefully you will find these useful. If you have feature requests or find a bug, please let me know, and I'll try to either fix the bug or add in the feature. Thanks for watching.